Greetings. So, this one this year is simple, folks. You are you're being played. You're being played. You're being played from uh, butt kicking experience. You are being played. So, in this period of so much so much coming forth about cults and scams within the black community, although of course it's not limited to the black community, but a lot of things are coming forth, and it is an opportunity for us to see. It's a great opportunity for us to see and to put our emotions, as I said, put our emotions and even our preferences carefully to the side, and we have the opportunity to see. But I can tell you, I can tell you, greetings. I can tell you from butt kicking, heartbreaking experience, you are being played. The black community, once again, is being played back to back to back. It's not just the preachers, it's not just the school system, it's not just a symptom, it's beyond skin color. So, that perhaps is one of the first places for us to wrap our minds around. We are being played from within our own community. So, the witch hunt for agents, it's irrelevant because regardless of what label you want to put on it, agent, snitch, whatever, you are being played. So, although folks out there beyond this screen, you don't know the people, you don't know me, you don't know most of these cult leaders, everybody's watching this stuff like it's a reality TV show, reality TV shows. Some of the more savvy cult leaders, for example, Joseph Robinson, who's older in his 70s and more savvy, he knows to be laid back in the cut because he's watched what's happen to other cult leaders, right? So he doesn't want to end up in jail. He wants to be with his mates and continue to foster his agenda, his master plan, like any other cult leader. But you folks are being played. So perhaps the most helpful sharing that I can put forth, people can take it or leave it, is to point out some patterns, not preferences, patterns. Number one, you're being played on not one side, you're being played on several sides, black and white, chemical, processed, naturally. You're being played by different, just like being played by different political parties. You're being played on numerous sides. You have the older savvy cons, you have the new cons on the block, you have the in-between cons, you have the cons that want to be schooled by older cons, you have the cons that want to knock the older cons out the box, take their position and take their daughters. It's like, it's like kingpins or families. But you're being played, number one, distinction. You're not being played on one side, so you can see the pattern. Folks are being played on several sides. So know that you're not being played on one side. You're being played by young cons, older cons, and in between cons. New jack cons, cons that are new to the game. You're being played on several sides. So everyone is competing. As I said, from simple observation as a mother, I said once as we were on our out, doesn't matter if they're conscious or not. These are just labels. These are labels. You'll know people by their patterns of behavior and their consistent behavior over time. Now, how are you going to see people's consistent behavior on over time when you don't live with them? You can't see them when they don't have scripted behavior or when they haven't turned the camera to a certain angle, when they don't have their outfits on, when resources are scarce or whatever. So folks are being played on several sides. Know this. So that's a distinction. I'm here just sharing distinctions, right? Because distinctions, I like to say, make the difference, right? Sometimes you can think all these different things seem the same. You know something's off, but you may not be able to point out what the difference or the distinction is. So that's one, being played on several sides. Things that were being played on, several things: money, symbolism, and emotions. You're being played for money, right? So as much as folks like to make you think it's not spiritual to have money and all these different programs and stuff, money, you work for money. It's life energy that you put into whatever your craft or your trade is, even if you're working at Walmart or whether you have a degree. You've paid money, for these things, and you trade off life energy and creativity in order to be able to sustain yourself. So you're being played for money, straight up. So other people can make their own agendas, whether that's creating their own private Idaho or their own private empire, or to purchase them land. Plenty of people are paying for these cult members' babies, the choice of mates, their plane tickets. You're paying for their food. Meanwhile, many people that are sending donations work in Babylon, in the system. They're taking the money of the meat eaters, of the people with the chemical process in their hair. They're taking the money of the people with the bleeding hearts, right? You're being played for straight up and down money. Number two, you're also being played for symbolism, right? The things that you want to see. So we think oftentimes in pictures and symbols. Advertisers know this. This is just human psychology. Cults know this. Why? Because it works. So when you see children and women, when you see women and children that look like you, if you see children laid on the floor and they look like they're crying or suffering, or bombs overhead, if people tell you a sob story, this is how I came up, this is what I didn't have. Once people put a story out that you feel you can resonate with, then symbolically you see that as you, as an extension of you. And so you get played on it. It's real easy. It's like just pressing a button. So you're being played by symbols and pictures that trigger your emotions, and that also trigger trauma. So I'm just making some simple distinctions. If they make sense to you, if they don't, if it doesn't fit, toss it. But you're being played for money, symbolism, and the other thing is emotions. Anything that can play on your emotions, because quite often we make our purchases off of what? Not off of logic, off of emotions, with how we feel. So that folks can use words and tone and intonation, or music, or colors, or Rastafarian colors, or locks, or images of family. You don't know who's who. Most of you don't even know the real names of these people. And to be quite honest, another way that we're being played is this is elementary and it's simple, but a perfect place to hide things is right in front of people. You can hide stuff right there and people won't see it. So you don't know the real names of these people online. The high priest, that's not his name. His name is Joseph Robinson. These people haven't even changed their names legally. You don't know who's married to who. You don't know the legal contracts. You don't know how much they have in the bank. And they're asking you for your hard-earned money and life energy, and we're giving it freely because it's pressing emotional triggers and trauma. So you're being played, off symbolism, emotions, and money. Just another distinction. If I was so, and as a family member said to me as I was exiting the cult, my last phase of leaving it, if I was so devoted, and keep in mind, one distinction that I can make for myself that allowed me to walk out of Joseph Robinson's cult, aka self-proclaimed Earth Solar Messiah, self-proclaimed. Now, you don't need somebody that's eating fruits and vegetables to be a Messiah. Just eat fruits and vegetables. This is real simple. But if I was so devoted to these principles, and if I was going along so much and I was so devoted, and if I paid my own way, does it make sense? Then why would I leave? People are so caught up on picking a side. We're not asking the right questions, or let me not say right or wrong. We're not asking appropriate questions to get to the bottom of the why. So it goes right over our heads. Why would I leave if I was so devoted? Even my family member was saying, you were doing everything so right. Why are you leaving? You can stay. I left because there was an accumulation of things that did not add up. Numerous red flags. I'm not one to call someone a liar, but there were many things that didn't add up, confirmed by the character traits. And so the crazy making part of the technique of a cult And the cult leader to constantly get you to second guess your common sense and what you see clearly going on in front of you, and to give you all kinds of rationalizations and justifications for really off behavior. So I left because things didn't add up, and intuitively it didn't feel right. So there were not there weren't enough more excuses you could give me for just plain mistreatment, for lack of transparency with funds, for people showing up one day, disappearing the next day. It was no cross-referencing or discouraging any kind of cross-referencing. And the majority of the people there constantly being isolated and not asking any questions. This was all, amongst many other things, was very, very off. So when you see people that leave a cult, you want to ask why. Once again, I will say there is an extensive list of cults, black and white, for people to educate themselves on this channel. There are some key ones that I would recommend you take a look at, but it's all been listed for your edification and your education, so you can sit back and you can cross-reference cults and people actually that have left cults, even the sons and daughters of people that have left cults. So that should be, so you don't have to play favorites because someone that just has chocolate skin. The other thing is that, and this is something I used to wonder, where are all the people that disappeared from the cults? We were constantly given, and a technique that cult members use is testimonials. Why don't the Belizean authorities intervene? First of all, that's a good question. When you talk about authorities, there are different levels of authorities. There's a U.S. Embassy, right? So this is Belize. This is Central, and people think this is South America. This is not South America. This is Central America. So there are different governing bodies of law. And there are certain things that the U.S. Embassy can hold you accountable for. One of them is human trafficking. So please understand that master manipulators are not walking around like your average Joe. They are very crafty with human psychology, and they know enough of the law to operate off of the radar, which is why you have many people that are fleeing. You can look this stuff up online. There are all kinds of people that that are sex offenders, that are different types of criminals that stay off of the radar in other countries. Right. So the Belizean authorities, and rather they are very slick about getting people to, a scam artist is a scam artist for a reason. So they'll con you out of your money, and they con it in such a way that they don't get things on contract. They do a switch and bait, basically. It's like saying, they really work to get us to get the last bits of our money for land, for example, in this case. And I was saying, we're about to walk out of here with our panties on. We don't need to give this guy any more money. So they read a contract to us. His Miss Wells, his right hand Oshami, his feminine speaking voice with the glasses, who you see him with all the time, read us a contract. Remember, one of his wives is also a researcher, and one is also a lawyer, Joseph Robinson. So these guys are not your average Joe, and don't even sleep on a pimp on the street level, but read us a contract. And said, 1 minute he said, we don't deal with contracts, and this is all internal, this is all family. And then the next minute he was switching and said, oh, we have the best lawyers and stuff. So constantly a switch and bait. But read us a contract, told us to draw up a contract and present it to him because we didn't want to give him any more money. And said and then had his wife, the queen, the so-called queen mother. So look at these terms, black people. We want to offer the highest respect to our elders and to the queen mother. I'm one of those people that want to be super respectful. But sometimes being respectful and polite will get you in trouble, will get you conned from constantly being the nice guy. And it's not about being the nice guy. You hold to principle, but it doesn't mean you give a pass, emotionally when something is off. So they read a contract, then would have his queen mother walk us city girls, city women, through the garden, because that relaxed us before it brings us into a meeting to ask for more money. And then paint this picture of, oh, the high priest has such a vision for you. The last family that left, they weren't patient enough, but he has a vision, and you're going to be, a part of it. This is the words of the queen mother. So you just need to come up. This is somebody from Africa, right? But you just need to come up off that cash. This is what this woman said. Sometimes her English was on point. You just need to come up off that cash. And she also played us knowing that we had respect for her as it might sound funny to you, But it wasn't funny to us because this is actually when you're in an isolated environment and you think you're coming to something, really think you're coming to community. You're thinking, and this is women, this is mothers, this is the queen mother over all the mothers and the children. Then you have all these other intelligent women with degrees that also look up to her. It's kind. You are being kind. You know what I'm saying? So constantly, and then we're constantly isolated. We're constantly divided amongst each other. But she sends this woman, the queen mother, to speak to us personally. So again, you feel like you're being given audience with the Messiah. You're being given audience with the Messiah's queen mother. It's like the king or the queen talking to you. This is game. And when you're isolated, and it's so many different dynamics being played on you at one time. So this is just one of so many examples that I couldn't even tell you in a short video. But I'm here to tell you, people, you are being played not just by white supremacists, black supremacists, Monsanto. You're being played by all of the religions, and people just don't believe it. Not my guru, not my preacher. They wouldn't dare. My preacher, my elder eats raw foods and has locks and is an elder, been doing this for many years. It's an old pimp, and pimps and cons have children too. I'm just saying. Are there a lot of families from the U.S. there? Lot is relative, but there are a few. Some come and go like a revolving door, because there are many reality checks here in Central America. So many of us don't do our research, and a lot of us are operating in emotion, fantasy, and ignorance. There is nothing wrong with wanting to relocate and explore other ways to live. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's very likely, it's like if you're not from the neighborhood, it's very likely you'll get charged gringo prices, 3, 4, 5 times as much for food, building materials, all that stuff. It's very likely people, you have nuances, ways of speaking and moving that don't fit in culturally with other people. Remember, I just came from doing some a book drive in the South, and this is 2018, and people were so appreciative. I was in areas where it was like a road where it was like a long way to get in and out, where there wasn't really a lot of Wi-Fi access. I mean, where people were thirsty to read and for books. So there are many things that we take for granted in the States. You might need ayahuasca in your life. Nah, I'm good. I'm not interested in the ayahuasca. I see a lot of that's going on around here. If that's what, would float your boat, go for it. But I'm not interested in any substances that could potentially dull my critical thinking abilities. But if that's what you're for, go for it. And again, to each their own. Many people are entertained by what's going on. That's part of the reason why folks are so easily scammed. Some people just come to Central America to do cacao ceremonies and ayahuasca ceremonies and whatever other kind of ceremonies. And there's so many different, there's 1,000,001 distractions en route to whatever it is you're looking for. But anyway, back on Target. So when people leave the cults, there's all this. I wondered why people don't come forward and speak up. I knew there were many, many mates, and then many people that left. I was like, where are all these people? And it took times. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware. She pointed that out. But I was wondering, where are all these people? And slowly but surely they started to come forth. It's just a matter of time. So again, peep game. People don't come forth because they're traumatized. Within the cult, all of the different members are isolated from each other. So people are not encouraged to speak to each other. Family members are separated from each other. It's rare that people will come together. So many people that come to these cults feel there's no one that they're on the same page with, in their neighborhood or their community, or they don't have friends, or they're looking for community. So quite often people are isolated. So you come in there and you're isolated, and you usually are befriended by one of the members of the cults, or another woman or another male that's similar to your age, or find something to bond with you. That's who usually brings you in. Not similar to most of the religions that knock on your door, or people inviting you to their church. They usually are resonating with you on a trauma bond, or you're all looking for something together. So this is like it's really basic. But I wondered, what number one, where are all the people that left the cult over time, slowly give it time, people came forth and they reached out, and wow, talk about connecting the dots. Different men and women showed up, and they gave quite a bit of insight and cross referencing, because there's some things that you won't be able to cross reference on. It will be very hard to cross reference online, particularly when it comes to cross referencing people's character. Many people are embarrassed to come forth because they feel like, how could I have let this happen to me? And there are also people of different ages, some very, very young. You know, they're not as savvy. They may know something is off, but they may not be able to articulate the whole process of what happened, and this leads to a lot of guilt. But I could tell you, this is a savvy con artist. This is one I'm speaking of, and I'm watching the patterns. Yeah. So it's yeah. Well, it is what it is, you know. And I'm just saying this for, again, I'm not here for people's entertainment. I've said this before. I'm not looking for people's permission, thumbs up, thumbs down. What is the solution when someone is connected, con out of their life saved, and looking for help in a situation? So it seems all outsiders can do is judge without answers. Well, more so, let's see if I can make a distinction. I don't know if it's more so about a solution. I think that one of the most helpful things that I can bring out of this situation is to provide education, so that when people go online to research, that they can cross reference. Because if you don't have a frame of reference, that's one of the main reasons, one of the main ways that people are con, because they don't have an eye. You may know something intelligent, and I've seen numerous intelligent people. Like, it's not a matter of you're very articulate, or you can read, or you have good language, or you can do good multiple choice questions. It's really just a matter of someone hasn't had a certain experience before. So it's one thing for me to come on camera and to regurgitate something or tell you something I looked at on a YouTube video. But I'm saying something that I have experienced firsthand. And keep in mind, it's not a fun, enjoyable thing for me to have to say that in my own community there's an elder scamming, and that there are women that are participating in the scam, that are turning a blind eye, and that women are also being used to lure women in. I didn't know that what's his name, Jim Jones, used basketball to lure young men in. That's one of the things that Joseph Robinson uses. And I do understand, even if I tell you, the best that you could do is use your common sense, because you don't have a frame of reference. So the best that I can do, or the most valuable, the thing that I can do, is provide insight into some of the patterns that many people don't have a frame of reference for. They would try to so you'll be vulnerable. Even the ones that speak up have been conned, or not enlightened on a solution. It's extremely frustrating. So also, when you have folks, and I will say that many of our people are so, and I'm not making anyone wrong or right, or so comfortable with just being entertained in front of a screen. Turn off the screen, or everybody's coming to get popcorn like this is a fun situation. Many people may not realize this applies to people even in the States. There are cults, like these cults start out in the United States. And some of them go to different countries and then go back to the States, because there's nothing like the US dollar. You know, again, as I just toured another area of Central America this past week, it's enlightening and it's humbling how many people from the States are trying to run away from something, poverty or crime. There's poverty and crime in Central America. There's drugs here, there's laws here, there's all kind of stuff. I just saw some stuff in the South that was humbling, that might make many people want to stay in the United States. You know, if nothing else, I encourage people to do their homework. And then again, I encourage folks not to take for granted your day-to-day simple habits, like eating your own food, saving your money, getting your health and exercise together. You have access to so many resources. Any environment that you go into has tremendous trade-offs. But I saw a lot that was humbling. When I say humbling, extremely humbling. So people are running to something, and basically they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Don't know what they're getting themselves into in other countries. So yes, it's not like you can jump across the water and go scout this stuff out on your own, because it costs money for a plane ticket. But if you are thinking of relocating or traveling, due diligence needs to be, you need to take due diligence, and you just can't trust anybody at face value. That's that's the long short of it. This I have seen so much, and I continue to see so much in these different countries. Sometimes I have to stop and just marinate and take all of this stuff in. Because anywhere you go, you're going to have to pay for land, you're going to have to pay for water, for electricity. In the States, all of those different things are built into the cost that people don't think of. So there's just so many different things in terms of the cost that we take for granted in the States. And when you step outside the United States, it's a reality check. Many of us are coming and going into other environments with a tourist mindset. So it's like today when I saw all these gigantic pelicans all over. Yes, we probably look like tourists because, we're on and on over pelicans that are there, every day. So, we stand out, how we look at the cost of things and how we look at the cost of fuel. Our whole paradigm is different in the States. But I don't want to lose track of my point. The last point I was making is that people coming out of cults, either they don't come forward because they're very embarrassed, or they come forward like everything was all positive, because distinction. People are still under those extensive programming, just like muscles that are developed. There are thought patterns and ways of thinking and reasoning that are cultivated and emphasized when you are in a cult. All other kinds of stimulus and critical thinking is taken away so that you only start to move as a group. You think as a group and you only follow what the cult leader says, and the cult leader has his minions that deal with the males and that deal with the females to keep everybody in check and in place. And the worst thing a cult leader wants is to be exposed. That is a cult leader's nightmare. So they will use family members, and again, I'm watching all of this stuff to lure in other family members or to keep other officials off of their neck, to keep them from being exposed. So when you see people say, "Oh, it's positive," no, it's not all positive, but that's part of the conditioning, is to get you to overlook a lot of the off things that you're seeing within the cult. So if it was so positive, then people the cult, and then quite often you're conditioned not to speak out, to say anything quote unquote negative about the cult. What was the other thing? So maybe this is basic, or maybe people take this for granted. Again, you can't see from a screen what's going on the ground level of the cults. You can't see the inconsistencies, and you can't see the patterns. You can't see people's body language. You can't see how they're being cued to answer questions. You can't see it, and I can guarantee you it's all being orchestrated. And I can also guarantee you that critical thinking is not being applied, because again, the cult leader speaks to and that's why there's so many different flavor cults. There's one for everybody. Speaks to your preferences. If your need for, all of them speak to our needs for a father, pretty much across the board. They all speak to a void that people have in their life with guidance, or the father, or put it all in the hands of the father have mercy on you, and come up and bow before the guru, or touch Joseph Robinson, high priest. You got to bow before him, and you have to be very feminine, and you have to speak, in a voice like this, and you should be trying to woo, the high. I see so many similarities between this so-called raw vegan with locks elder and this other guy, that is unbelievable. Every time I see something, I have to look at myself like, this is just like Joseph Robinson. This is exactly like Joseph Robinson. The way the women are being pitted against each other, the way women and children are being put out in the front. Women and children are being put in front of you to paint a picture and a story. I'm gonna be honest with you. I eat living foods. Whatever. It doesn't make me better than anybody else. We all doodle in the same toilet. But it's not a religion. Here's again where people play with semantics, right? A religion, or you can say it's your way of life. So what? Somebody's been eating raw foods or eating uncooked fruits and vegetables for 50 years, 100 years. It's not enough to tell you about the person's character. You cannot see all the stuff that's going in there. The same as you folks that eat the meat. You can't see it, but it's going on there too. And by the time you figure it out, it's going to be late. You'll be depleted of your resources, and you will have been having unprotected sex with the folks in there. I'm just saying. And by the time you drop a couple of babies, because you will be orchestrated to have babies for entrapment, and your resources will be gone. it'll be too late, and you've estranged yourself from your family. So you might want to cross-reference. So, the other technique is that some distinction for people to watch the patterns of is that one of the ways that the cult leaders constantly entrap you is by, and this is simple, it's basic, but not to be underestimated, is by giving you attention. That's male or female. So, if you don't have the ability or discernment, if this doesn't fit you, then ignore it. But if you don't have the wherewithal to be honest with yourself, that's one of the main ways they can get you. Because the male, you feel comfortable as a male, he's going to be that father for you where you can feel vulnerable but still be a man. And he's going to give you the attention of your absent father, or the father that's there that is strong but is absent, is emotionally disconnected. So one of the main techniques of a cult leader is to stroke your ego by giving you compliments that your father didn't give you, or your parents that have passed away didn't give you. Is they give you attention. They give you private audience, so you feel like you're with the Most High or the Messiah or whatever, and they're giving you private audience. Might mean everything to a person. Exactly. If you're isolated, and this is classic cult technique, to make you feel that you are better than the meat eaters, to make you feel that you're better than the younger people. This is the same thing as Willie Lynch. He's telling you about Willie Lynch, but it's the same thing. To make you feel that you're better than the others. That don't tell the others, but you're more special. You're doing better than them because they have problems. They came in. You're doing so much better than them. So I got my eye on you. This is technique. A main technique is to stroke your ego and make you feel that you're better than your sister, to make you feel that you're better than your son, to make you feel that you're better than the one that just came in, or that you're the most loyal. Oh, that's one of the best ones. Some of the most devoted people, they're not giving you anything. The only thing that you're being given psychologically is the feeling that comes with you're the best student. You're doing everything the right way. I'm one of those people that's the good student and wants to do everything right and wants to be honest about everything. And that's how you get played. It seems so... It's heartbreak, but you want to do this desire in people to do the right thing, and you're not waiting for the government or anything to make things right for your people. It's unfortunate. Am I saying that that we shouldn't give to our folks? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying that I have learned through butt kicking lessons is to have discernment. It doesn't matter if you like them. It doesn't matter if you think that they're good or bad. It's discernment. It's qualifiers. And many people are when I say worried about speaking out, that's not my focus. I'm speaking out. And even if I said that I'm worried, the honest thing is most people are entertained. I've had to think about this for a long time. So I'll put that question. If anything happens to me, are any of you folks coming to look for me in Central America? If this cult over here, the police could be corrupt over here. And so I've had to contend with nobody's really coming. This is one of the reasons why I do speak out, is because I've had, and this has been very heartbreaking. As someone who's been very devoted to a way of life and lifestyle, there are so many men and people that are defending this cult leader when we were basically scammed. There are people that have never lived with him, maybe bought a plate of his food or whatever he represents to them. If he was to send his brainwashed minions, after us, is anybody coming to check for us in the Black community? Does anybody care about these mature Black women? No. So I'm going to speak out regardless, because I would have wanted somebody to say something for me. So is somebody going to be responsible and not be intimidated and risk being rude to an elder to speak up? I don't think so. So I don't know that I have... worried is not my top priority, because whether I'm worried or not, I still have to move and I have to live. I could have been worried in the United States with people being killed, Black men being killed, with Black on Black crime, going to work at 4:00 in the morning to train clients. So as the Black woman, do I have the time or the luxury to play into my worry? No, I don't, because then I would be paralyzed into doing nothing. I would have never left the United States. And many of us just get paralyzed by worry and just eat ourselves to death. So I can't say that I really have the luxury to bask in my worry. And I found it more effective to do something rather than worry. At the end of the day, what am I going to do? So if folks have a concern, then folks could, some things people could do is cross-reference this person. Folks could educate themselves. The people really have care and concern rather than be entertained and make all kinds of, funny comments. You know what could be really helpful for folks to, when they take the time to educate themselves on black and white cults. Take the time to investigate this person. Don't even take my word for it. Investigate. If people are really concerned, I don't know what y'all can do to make sure that me and my sister are safe. I don't know what you could do because I'm in another country. So that has been a concern. But whether I'm worried or not, I'm choosing to live, and I'm choosing to not be intimidated. Whether someone is black or white, if you're 70, if the behavior is off, if you're violating women and children, you don't have my support. I came supporting with my own hard-earned money, time, resources, and energy. So if it was so great, I would still be there. Do I care for the children? Obviously I did, I wouldn't be here. But, one monkey don't stop no show. I'm choosing to go on. So if folks are really concerned, people can educate themselves. I don't know what you folks can come up creatively to make sure that, that doesn't take you out of your way to make sure that we're safe. But I can tell you what I am doing. Can you get good internet? It depends on where you are. I've been some places where the internet is not good. So again, I just came from the South. There's so much research. I have learned so much between the cult, between my experiences traveling throughout Belize. I used to work in the travel industry years ago. I've had such an education. So I don't know if I would say the shortcut, but some gems to take is like, I would advise people not to have a fantasy about moving to another country. Anywhere you go, people are there already. People that are there have to eat. People are not going to feel good if they feel like this is just human nature. If they feel like you're eating something, you're eating and they can't eat. These are things that perhaps as Americans we may not, culturally, we may not consider when we're going to another country. How are you going to earn your money? How good the internet is? If the bank machines, the political climate, if there's a threat to the political climate. There's so many different things that people just don't consider because people are in love with the palm trees. Maybe the United States is a cult, but everyone here has options, and family, whether they're close or not, can be an asset. Yes, there are trade-offs. There's cults everywhere. And so at this point, I'm not choosing to focus on that because it's just like you're in a jungle. There's predators, there's snakes everywhere. You can't be paralyzed and not move because there's cults everywhere. The most perhaps effective thing that we can do is to be educated and to take our time and retrain ourselves to not be so emotional in our decision making. Especially, this is not limited to women, but especially as women, because you can get scammed by women. You can get scammed by people with locks that are eating fruits and vegetables that are calling themselves raw foodists. I can tell you, I would recommend that people take their money, and I couldn't see that last comment. Take your money and get yourself fruits and vegetables and get yourself some seeds and grow them, even if you have to grow them in an apartment. That's what I did. That's the stuff that this man couldn't take away from me. There's just so much. I just couldn't even tell you in 1 or 2 videos. And life goes on. There's other things for me to do. I just had a really wonderful experience, doing a book drive here. And things like that really put things into perspective. For anyone that celebrates Kwanzaa Habarigani, what's the news for today, which is Kuji Jagalia, to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves instead of being defined, named, created for, and spoken for by others. Those are universal principles that we can live by. They have nothing to do with religion, So these were things I was living by that this man could not take away from me. The common sense of my grandmother, he couldn't take away from me. I'll just say that, I got taken to school. I got taken to school for a PhD course in scamming. You don't necessarily have to pay all of that investment for this particular lesson. You still have to apply the lesson, because often in this internet age, we listen to audio books or look at YouTube videos, similar to some of these younger cult leaders and think like we know. And a lot of times we're regurgitating information. That's another way that you can get got, because the savvy cult leader knows that you don't have the life experience, and we get so full or for bragging, I know, and I took the course and I got the certification, and we come to these other countries with our yoga certifications, our Tai Chi certifications, our business degrees and stuff, and don't even know the terrain. We're not sensitive to the people that already live there, and you can still get got. Intelligent people can get got, through their emotions and so on. So, the other thing, the other distinction I want to make with the cult leaders is ways that they'll get you. If you isolate yourself and end up in one of these cults, you cancel out options. That is correct. But do understand one of the main ways that these cults, one of the main ways they operate is to isolate you. It's life experience, and you learn from. Plus, you're able to share information. People have no clue. That's my intention. I'm sharing information for education. With all of this information, I also understand and accept people are still going to make the choice to go into these cults because they're looking for something to fill a void. And which brings me to my next point. So there were a couple of key distinctions in technique that these cons, pimps, preachers, gurus use to lure you in. Is also something within you that they tap into. There's a desire that they tap into that will lure you in. So one was stroking your ego and give you attention and compliments, or giving you that father figure. That's a key one. Stroking your ego is big time, and making you feel like you're better than the other women, that you're smarter than the other men. You're so much farther along than the other ones. Bringing you in a private meeting or giving you a pat on the back. It's like petting a dog, and you feel like you're the number one top student. But the other thing, this is a big one, and this is big on the young people today, is one of the things that the cult will do will support you in not making decisions in your life, right? Now, the cult leader will have you think this is the biggest decision you're making, and this is how I'm watching some young people that are in there now, and some mature adults too, is that you're making this decision and you're helping the whole rest of the world with your decision. But basically, what people out there don't see is that many of these people are not taking care of their own children. And they're being told, and this is within Joseph Robinson's thing too, that their own birth children can't come in to the cult, and they're isolated. Only when the cult members are thoroughly broken in are they allowed to sometimes communicate, just really to keep the authorities and keep the attention off of them. But all of the communication is monitored very, very closely and limited by the cult leader and his minions. So he has a chain of command in his minions, male and female, and that includes mothers, right? If you have children in a cult, that's the main way that's used to control you. So sex is a major way. What's average rent in Belize? That's a whole nother conversation about rent in Belize. That can go so many different ways in Belize. And again, and I'm not trying to sound funny, but if you want, the main place for you to check first would be with a realtor, so you can get an understanding of the fees. And if you're on the ground, it's very very common for you to get scammed. And just when you're coming to any of these countries and you have an American accent, you have money, it is very likely that you'll be scammed. You'll be the black person, but you'll still be considered the American with the money. So I'd recommend that you look first with realtors so you can have an idea, and take your time and do your research, because we want somebody to give us the answer very very quick. Again, I don't know who the Travis is. He had access to the internet. Speaking up is probably the only outlet. Is bingo. And so there are many people I felt like wanted me to say like, oh, aren't you worried about speaking up? So to me, as a mother, I'm thinking like social media just to bring attention. I'm grateful for social media. You can use it for something positive or something negative. Otherwise, I mean, even still, me speaking up, people are so caught up in their entertainment. Nobody's necessarily worried about my sister and I. So it's pretty much like we're on our own alone, and no one is coming to our defense. Or even, this is the thing that's sad. I've noticed for the most part, In particular, males run to the defense of, and some females, but mostly males, because of what this man represents to them. And this is no pun intended on the males, but because this man has given them counseling, and their problems with their mates, that they're defending this man who they don't know and have not lived with at all. You know what I'm saying? Most people have never even given him sizable amounts of money. So I've lived in there, I've given money, you know what I'm saying? And so people come to his defense because psychologically of what he represents to him. And even women who have been brainwashed by him come to his defense. And there's a tremendous lack of critical thinking. So yes, I'm speaking up for my own protection. I'm definitely speaking up so that young people are not scammed into this. And understand, they don't need thousands of followers. They do have a grand vision, a narcissist and a psychopath and a cult leader. They have a grandiose scheme and vision, and it requires people to get it done. No different than all this supremacy and that supremacy. The reality is it comes in all different tones and cultures. It is what it is. So any kind of romanticism, and I'm not going to play with the words of Roman antics, whatever, any kind of romanticism about our culture and that we don't have deviant behavior in our culture, male and female, I'm not even interested in what label you want to call it. At this point, it's all about the behavior and the character. It's not even about my favorites. If it's coming in the form of family members or whoever, it doesn't matter. Scamming, any kind of misuse of women or children or males or females, if it's off, it's off. And us turning a blind eye to it is how it continues. If we turn a blind eye to it because, it's family members or because they're black or they have locks, it's an error. Because eventually when it's not an issue until the entertainment factor is over, or until it affects our livelihood, or until it affects a family member, or until it happens to us. And then you don't really have any recourse. Can I hire you as an agent? That perhaps is another conversation. That's not my primary focus, is not to be an agent. My primary focus in sharing is that so women and young people don't get scammed. So you're free to send a message wherever, if there's a message or message board, some here. You can send a message. Perhaps I can answer your questions. But my primary focus for sharing is to share this information, because I would have wanted somebody to be honest, and for someone to have the guts and the courage to risk being embarrassed, to speak up and say something. It was extreme. It's painful. It was more painful. I'm feeling more. I'm more in acceptance about it. But it does not feel good to have to know that somebody that's wearing an ankh with locks and eating fruits and vegetables is doing this within our own community. It doesn't feel good, because it just does not feel good. And it's like your mind, initially you can't wrap your mind around it. But I'm here to tell you it's real. And it really, I don't know if it's just as heartbreaking to see women who are in on it. And even though I understand it's because their resources are gone and they've had children into it, now they're newer generations that they just had 3 babies at the same time in Joseph Robinson's camp. And then now their family, they're going to protect their children. You know what I'm saying? But once you're in deep, it's late, and you have to, and it's key. And I've heard this man say out of his mouth, he wants to get people that are young, basically who don't have anything or that are very poor, because they're going to feel very grateful. So that's another technique. If the cult leader can make you feel like you owe your life to him. He told my sister that she owes her femininity to him. There's just so much crazy stuff that was just really off. So when people are making their judgments or their assessments out of no grounding other than people's psychological judgments on my presentation or my tone, if they think I'm lying or if I'm not lying, people are not, people are just not doing their research, because maybe they don't have a vested interest in it. So if anything, what I'm sharing is for information and education for those people that are thinking of going to the tropics or that have fantasies. I'm not here to discourage people from living their lives. I am here to demystify some myths other than going as a tourist, is it likely? It's likely it's anywhere else. A lot of hard work if you truly want to live off the land and be self-sufficient. Climate is just more sufficient. Yeah, I mean, I have a small garden, and I can tell you, it's work. I don't know how I mean, people would have no time to really be online if they were putting time in the garden. And there's some trees that grow that don't need any care. Low maintenance banana trees, you don't have to do nothing to them. Mango trees, you don't have to do anything to them. There's lots of fruit trees that will just grow. But if you're cultivating greens and herbs, it constantly has to be weeded, especially during the rainy season. And then also when you start to travel, there are areas of the world in Africa and other. There's no shortage of land, and people actually know how to grow food, but we're so conditioned and colonialized. People are eating so much chips and junk food. I mean, we part of it, we get played out because of our conditioning to religion of putting responsibility. And I hope I touched on that. Was one of the main things I wanted to touch on, was that the cult leader, one of the main things they provide is for people not to be responsible and making the scary decisions about life. But it's no different than putting everything in a mystery God's hands. So, whatever you want to call it, the universe, and you want to call it Mother, Father, God, none of the labels removes us from responsibility. Responsibility with your body, with your genitals, with your resources, with your money. There's no way of getting around responsibility. And anyone or anything that's telling you to just pray and put it in somebody else's hands, you don't have to do anything, and that you're going to get a fresh, brand new body when you've abused this one, I would put on my sneakers and start running the opposite direction. So they're all playing into people's fear around making decisions and cause people to be very indecisive, which is still in itself a decision. So people want to escape decisions or escape the repercussions of decisions that we've already made in life and get a brand new start. This is all pimp conning religion 101, but not to be underestimated, because when you're in your teens and your 20s, you may not be as experienced to be able to articulate this. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, even after leaving this cult, I have seen so much. Life experience is like a true education. And I would say this, whether you're in the States or you're looking to go to the tropics, let me say this. There's a lot to be grateful for in the States. There's a lot of opportunities that we have. I see a lot of young women that don't have those opportunities. I see it, it's not all, but I see a good amount of women, indigenous women, chocolate folks, Mayan folks, that that are having babies and stuff at 14. Now some people say, oh, that's their culture, whatever, but they may not have opportunities or be stimulated with books and other things. You know what I'm saying? So it's not good or bad, but I've seen people that don't have access, or folks with large tracts of land that's sitting there, that's not being cultivated. So I think we can have a tendency to have fantasies about what it's going to look like, how much work it's going to take. I don't know if people even think of moving building materials from one area to another, and the cost of gas in another country. So yeah, it's going to cost you something to investigate, to have someone on the ground, to do research or to show you around. Because remember, the people that are also in these countries, they want to get paid. They have to eat too. The people that are already living in the country that you want to go to, they need to eat too. And sometimes folks are just bypassing them, and we're so quick to say that that's just the parallel persuasion folks. So there's so much to think of. I don't want to discourage folks. I encourage people to put on their thinking caps, because we need large doses. Just like we need green juice, we need large doses of critical thinking, and to put our preferences to the side. So we like this guru, or we like this person locks, or we like their recipes, and look at their character. And that's very hard to see on a computer screen. It's very hard to see on a computer screen. And for the person that asked me if I'm worried about speaking up, in our own lives, maybe that's a question to put to everybody. I see if there's 11 people, whoever's on the stream, is there anything that you see that's going on in the community that you're worried about? Are we worried about not speaking up? Are we worried about not doing anything? If we're just being idly by, standing idly by as we see stuff that's going on, whether that's molestation or scamming in our own communities, or just not making an effort to be a contribution and to do something that's forward movement. Are we worried about not doing anything? So I don't know that I have the luxury to stay focused on worrying, because I have things to do. There's so much to be done. Just even in terms of chores, every day, and there's still a lot to be grateful for, because I just met some elders in a village, and to see folks at in their 90s with white hair, when the other family members have died off, or to watch people. I mean, I really got more of a perspective. I have Southern and Caribbean family, but to get a whole nother perspective again on people that will go to the States and get a job working in, let's say, cleaning bathrooms or movie theater or whatever, and send their money back home, because it goes a long, long way. I think the African American side, and it's not, either one is not better than the other. Like, we're like, I'm not doing that. My grandparents did enough nannying. Neither is wrong. There's so many different perspectives. So I think I'm observing that it's valuable to take the best of all those perspectives, marinate on, and come up with a strategy for what we want our lives to look like. And how can we develop a litmus test, or what will we develop as a litmus test? It's 2-to-1. What will we develop as a litmus test for how to work with each other in a way that we can trust? But I say there's no blind trust. How can we have workable agreements, contracts, transparency, and protect ourselves from each other? You know what I'm saying? And the different motivations that people are coming with, because that's a reality. People are just not transparent. Not when they're trying to, pull people online, whether that's somebody they're attracted to, for mates. People are not going to be revealing. And also, it's like people ask me, what's your location? You know, Give me a pound and sold. There's so much to say about that. If you want to look for land and stuff, like a lot of people say a lot of stuff. If you are really committed to moving to another country and seeing how then you'll do the research. You know what I'm saying? You will invest so that you don't get scammed. You will invest the time to visit. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot that we could say. The YouTube and all the stuff gives us a platform to talk. But it's a lot of groundwork to be done, so you don't get scammed or pulled into any of these cults, or even by people telling you they're going to do all the work for you. Reference and cross-reference everybody, and sometimes be willing to pay so you don't get scammed, to get some decent lawyers and people that understand the law. You can go to another country where the law may not be in English. These are things that we just may not be thinking of. And some people think that they don't do cults, and sometimes the cult may not be called a cult, but there's cults in terms of we define cult. There's religious cults, there's new age, there's so many different, there's cults and corporations, there's susu cults, there's all kinds of cults. So it's not really the label that you put on, whether there's some cults that are more obvious than others. But at the end of the day, it's like, what's your bottom line? Are you making clear agreements with people? What are you trying to achieve? Do you have clear agreements that protect you and the other party? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, a lot of people say they're not this, but whether you're a Christian or call yourself in a cult or not, you can still get scammed, because I'm watching it. I've seen it, and I'm still watching it. And I was informed of some more stuff. Today it's going on. So again, there's plenty of intelligent people with numerous degrees that would never think that they were in a cult. I didn't think it was a cult. I didn't think it was a cult at all. I wasn't looking for any religion. I'm not Christian. I'm pretty well exposed to ashrams and Krishna and Buddhist temples and the nation and Christianity. I'm exposed. I'm pretty well traveled. So it's not necessarily because we say we're this or we say we're not that. Sometimes we just may not have a reference for other people's agenda. So what's the best thing that we can do to protect ourselves when we have a goal in mind? So where you want to live, how you want to live, who you want to live with, clear agreements. This would be the I'm familiar with some Hare Krishnas. So all of this stuff I just chalk it up to. I'm not the labels. I'm more interested in the character, the character of who it is that I'm I'm dealing with, you know. So, I mean, for some people, the chanting works great. For some people, the chanting makes them sane. To me, it's not about somebody else's their practices. It's what is the moral and the character and the behavior of the person. Is the person responsible? You know, instead of saying with consciousness or this, are we responsible? Are we responsible? Are people responsible with their genitals and with their money and with their energy and their resources? I think responsibility could be a good place to start. Could be a good level playing field for everyone. Are we, before any consciousness of these labels, are we responsible? I think really responsibility would balance a whole lot of this stuff out as if we're responsible, because responsibility has actions that are attached to it. So we don't get so caught up in the statements of I'm vegan, I'm raw, I am this, I am that. It's what's the behavior, what's the action, are we being responsible? That could perhaps level a lot of the playing field. So hopefully this is helpful. One last thing I want to say something. So I've had different people reach out to me online, because people don't know me online. I'm not looking to get to everyone. Again, I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing this stuff so people can be informed. But folks will name drop, and I've said this to some younger people. Folks will use, this is technique, will say the words brother, sister, community, natural, all natural, so and so consciousness, Christ consciousness, sun gazing. People will drop these words. These are new trendy trigger words, Illuminati or whatever, so that people can bond off of these words. So this is particularly to young people and to women, and to, what does it go to anybody, and to young men. These key words, somebody could be a brother or a sister. Do you still update your passport? To me, for me, yeah, it makes sense to update my passport, yeah, because how are you going from point A to point B without a passport? I mean, some of this stuff is like real basic. Again, if you take all these labels, I'm not trying to sound funny. Where you going without a passport? You can't, if you're traveling, if your ID or something is expired, your passport allows you to travel. So I don't ascribe to any of the different camps or communities or, you know, to any of that. But I don't, unless somebody has something different, I don't see how folks are traveling, trying to go to Africa, Asia, Central America without a passport. If one of you has a way to travel without a passport, let me know, because I have worked in the travel industry. You know, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Israel, I've been to Greece, I've been to numerous places. You can't go anywhere without a passport unless y'all got something new that I don't know about. But for me, I keep it simple. I keep a passport. I do know that they have a passport card. I think you can use it if you're traveling domestically. But if you're going, you're traveling internationally, you need a passport. So unless it's something I'm not aware of, you need a passport. You need a passport. So I update my passport. So I don't know. Maybe you can let me know what you're doing. Do you use a passport? You know, please share. Do you use a passport when you're traveling, or do you have another way? I think it was the person that just asked that question. Enlighten me. Have you found anything different in terms of traveling without a passport, or some new ways of traveling without a passport? I would love to hear, because that's a pretty important piece of information. To me, that's just like basic one-on-one. That your passport has to be updated. Any country that you go to, there's an embassy there. There are authorities there. There's a stamp before you come into the country. You're screened before you come in the country. And you're screened. Sometimes you can't even sometimes exit if you don't have your passport. And you can be, what do you call it, detained if you've overstayed when you get to the airport and you figure, well, I'm just going to jump on the aircraft. So, yeah, could that person let me know if they found anything different in traveling? I think it was WD had asked that question. I don't usually ask questions, but if there's a piece of information that you all know about, I only know to travel with an updated passport. And it's another one of those things that you want to keep all your keep emergency money. Any mature, I mean, I just say mature, responsible adult is going to have some funds saved up, and I would say funds on several ends. on you, and access to some funds, maybe a family member or a trusted individual back in the States that can perhaps wire you something if you need to, or if you need to call someone in case of an emergency, should you lose your passport. These are things to consider when you're traveling in other countries, just for you to stay safe, or if you needed to make an exit, or if there's a natural disaster. Natural disasters happen in other countries. There's a hurricane season here in this part of the world. And now we're starting to see more hurricanes, over in the States. So anyway, I don't want to drag this on too long, but do want to point out to you that quite often, and this why I have other things to do, but I do like to stay somewhat informed, and I'm here to tell you that folks are being conned once again, and I think some of us are lining ourselves up, whether we're planning to or not, to be conned because our emotions are being catered to when you see pictures of women, children, babies, and sobs. I don't know if I want to say it,